Usually, when you think about booking a woodland getaway or like a wellness retreat, there's this fundamental expectation of peace.
Right.
You go to escape the noise, you expect to find your center, drink some completely overpriced matcha, listen to the loons on the lake, and, I don't know, maybe have a mild spiritual breakthrough.
A baseline level of relaxation.
Exactly. But the retreat we're unpacking today brought the exact opposite. It brought police tape. It brought totally unanswered questions. And it brought enough waving red flags to fill an entire campground.
It is the absolute literal definition of a relaxing vacation turning into an active crime scene.
Babes, welcome back. We frickin' love you for being here. Get comfortable, because our mission today is to completely break down Season 1, Episode 4 of You're Killing Me, which is titled The Front Window.
Yes, we're going to analyze every plot hole, every psychological trap, and basically figure out exactly how you survive a vacation that turns lethal.
We have so much chaotic energy to manage today. But, before we get into the heavy logistics of murder, we need to talk about our current spirals. Because, well, my brain is short-circuiting over a beverage.
It really is. My analytical brain is also struggling to process this.
Right. We have to tell the Snark Squad what we are drinking tonight. Because, babes, we are drinking the salted caramel espresso martinis in a can from Gillon's. And I am officially declaring that canned cocktails are the absolute future of drinking. Convenience is the hottest trend of the summer.
I was so prepared to hate these, like legitimately ready to tear them apart.
Oh, you completely were. You were inspecting the aluminum can like it was a hazardous material.
Because as someone who appreciates the actual chemistry of a properly shaken espresso martini, the fresh crema, the lipid suspension, the perfectly balanced liqueur, the 3 espresso beans on top for health, wealth, and happiness, I was ready to judge this like a snobby mixologist at a speakeasy.
And yet, I am watching you happily chug every single sip.
Because the flavor profile is shockingly robust. Scientifically speaking, putting coffee and alcohol in a can usually results in terrible oxidation. The coffee turns acidic and sour.
Yeah.
But whatever nitrogen-flushing witchcraft Dillon's is using, it preserves the roasted notes perfectly. The salted caramel isn't artificial or cloying at all. It is a highly engineered, mechanically perfect beverage.
Exactly. Like, why would I spend $22 and tip a bartender who is actively ignoring me when I can just pop a tab in my living room and get this level of joy?
The ROI is undeniable.
It's just like our food situation today. Babes, we both just finished the most incredible steak and cheese sandwiches before hitting record, and I firmly believe these sandwiches deserve an actual award.
Pure comfort food perfection.
Yeah.
But it's really an engineering marvel if you think about it.
Oh my God, the bread. We have to talk about the perfectly toasted bread.
The structural integrity of a steak and cheese is usually its downfall. You know, the hot juices compromise the hull of the bread, and within 5 minutes, you are holding a wet, catastrophic sponge.
Ugh, the worst.
But this bread had a crispy exterior and a soft interior that acted as a perfect moisture barrier. The Maillard reaction on the steak was flawless, and the cheese was fully emulsified and aggressively melty.
It was borderline disrespectful how good it was. They loaded it with extra onions and peppers.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I will admit, it was a completely impossible task to eat it without making a total mess. I had cheese on my chin, grease on my hands. I looked feral, and I did not care.
I had to use 3 napkins before I even made a dent, but it was worth the loss of dignity.
Totally worth it.
Yeah.
And speaking of dignity and aesthetics, today we both wore our new embroidered scrubs to our respective dental offices.
It was a significant aesthetic upgrade for sure.
A massive confidence boost. The second I walked in, my coworkers immediately noticed. Patients were complimenting the colors. I am not going to lie, I was acting like I was walking a high-fashion runway down the clinic hallway. I felt completely untouchable.
I respect the confidence, but analytically speaking, there is actual psychological merit to it.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it's a phenomenon called enclothed cognition. It's the systematic influence that clothes have on the wearer's psychological processes. Embroidered scrubs scientifically make everyone look at least 15% more professional.
Oh, I love that.
You go from looking like you just rolled out of bed in, medical pajamas to looking like a specialized clinician.
Right.
It signals authority to the patients.
Enclothed cognition. That is so real. It really is the little things that change your entire mindset. Kind of like how a random algorithm can change your entire evening. Because right before we started recording, I accidentally went down a massive true crime TikTok rabbit hole, and we have to discuss it.
Yes, the algorithm strikes again.
It really did. It was all about female criminals. And we have to talk about why they are so endlessly fascinating.
Well, it's because they represent a massive departure from the statistical norm. When you look at criminology data, violent crime, especially serial murder, is overwhelmingly male. Women make up less than 10% of serial killers globally. So when a woman commits a highly orchestrated crime, it breaks all of society's preconceived notions of femininity, nurturing, and passivity.
Yes, it's the deep psychology of it that hooks me. The meticulous, elaborate planning they use. They aren't just reacting in a fit of rage in a bar fight. They are making spreadsheets.
The logistics are staggering.
They're studying toxicology. They are creating fake identities and leading wild double lives. I get way too emotionally invested in the stories. I find myself watching these videos and thinking, wow, she really thought of everything except the neighbor's Ring camera.
I try to analytically decode every single motive. I look at the environmental factors, the financial stressors, the interpersonal dynamics, and ultimately I have to admit that absolutely nothing makes sense. The human brain is a dark, complicated place. Reality is so often stranger than fiction.
It really is, which is actually the perfect transition. Babes, enough about our own spirals. Let's get into this case.
You do it.
Because reality blurring with fiction is the entire theme of this episode. Let's start with the setup, which is essentially about the procrastination station and a very recognizable cabin.
We open with Allie, played by the iconic Brooke Shields, having a highly vivid, spicy dream about Detective Jack Kerrigan.
A completely inappropriate dream given the circumstances.
Oh.
And she wakes up to Andy, demanding that they get to work. They have exactly 4 days to write an outline for the new Selena St. Cloud novel, which they're calling No More True Crime.
Right.
And Allie is doing everything in her power to not write. She's suddenly talking about wanting to learn Mandarin.
Which is a classic, recognized psychological defense mechanism against anxiety. She's facing a massive deadline, the pressure is immense, so her brain diverts to literally any other complex task to avoid the discomfort of the blank page.
Well, Andy is not having it, so she books them a writing retreat to force Allie to focus. They pack up and go to the Granite Creek Chalet. And this is where you need to share the shade you were throwing while we watched this, because your observation was incredible.
I immediately had to pause the screen. I looked at the wood paneling. I looked at the fireplace stones. They are supposed to be at the Granite Creek Chalet, but it is literally a recycled set.
Literally.
That cabin interior is exactly Liam's cabin from Season 4, Sullivan's Crossing.
I am still reacting with absolute emotional betrayal. How dare they? The audacity of a budget set reuse in the middle of a tense thriller.
Look, from a production standpoint, it's an economy of scale.
Right.
Building a bespoke cabin interior costs tens of thousands of dollars. Networks reuse sets all the time, but usually the set dressers work overtime to disguise it. Here, they did the bare minimum.
They changed the couch. They swapped out the curtains. But they kept the exact same coffee table, the exact same dining room table.
That is the literal table where Maggie and Liam sat and cried in Sullivan's Crossing.
Yes. And they even left the exact same stoneware bottle on the mantel. Like, do they think viewers don't have eyes? True crime and mystery fans are the most eagle-eyed, obsessive people on the planet. We notice the stoneware bottles. It completely shatters the suspension of disbelief for me.
They clearly underestimated their demographic. But logistically, Amalia Williamson, who plays Andy, left Sullivan's Crossing to do this show. So maybe it was a contractual thing, or she just felt homesick and wanted to film on her old soundstage. Either way, it's delightfully transparent.
Messy. So messy. Okay, moving on to the actual plot. Let's talk about the peeping Toms and the blatant rear window homage.
Yeah.
Because the episode title is The Front Window, which is 0% subtle.
It's a direct, heavy-handed nod to Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah. So Andy is supposed to be working, but instead she is sitting in the dark using binoculars to spy on the fancy hotel across the lake, which is called Lady Bell Landing. First of all, why is she spying on strangers?
Because she's a true crime podcaster who has lost her brand and her overarching narrative. She's inherently nosy. She's seeking a story where there isn't one. The psychological concept of voyeurism here is fascinating, actually.
Oh, yeah.
When you look through binoculars, you are safe in the dark, observing the lit room like a theater stage. It removes your culpability.
Well, until the play turns into a snuff film. She is specifically watching this really unattractive man getting undressed. And then suddenly things escalate. She sees him getting strangled to death from behind with a striped necktie.
The homage is fantastic. The isolation, the fixed vantage point, the helplessness of the observer. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, it mirrors Andy's fictional hit podcast from episode 1, the Staten Island Slayer.
Oh, wow. You're right.
Yeah, the specific mechanics of how that old killer operated strangulation from behind mirror the exact clues she spots through the window. It's incredibly meta. The fiction she created is now playing out in her reality.
Unhinged.
Yeah.
So Andy runs out of the cabin, screaming about a murder, totally frantic. She spills beer all over Jack's pants because, of course, Detective Jack Kerrigan is magically staying at the exact same campground post-divorce.
A highly convenient coincidence that we just have to accept for the sake of the romance plot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Jack, Allie, and Andy rush over to the hotel. They talk to the clerk, Wilma, who is giving peak, creepy, small-town local vibes. She has this unsettlingly calm demeanor and literally says, "We don't do homicides here." As if it's an amenity you can just opt out of.
Right, like, I'm sorry, we only offer continental breakfast, kayaking, and light embezzlement. No violent felonies.
Right. So they check room 308, which is registered to a woman named Kim Morrison. Nothing. Then they force their way into room 309. Zero evidence. No body. No signs of a struggle. The bed is perfectly made.
And this is where the psychological thriller element really kicks into high gear.
And this is where I get incredibly frustrated. Because everyone immediately assumes Andy's losing her mind. Allie thinks she fell asleep and dreamt it up because they've been brainstorming murders all day. Jack thinks she's hallucinating from exhaustion.
Well,
it is so infuriating when women aren't believed. This gaslighting trope makes me deeply emotional.
yeah.
She saw a man die, and they're treating her like a hysterical child.
I validate your emotional response, but analytically, we have to look at the reality of law enforcement and the Cassandra complex.
The what?
Cassandra was the priestess in Greek mythology who uttered true prophecies but was cursed never to be believed. Andy is the modern Cassandra. She is a sensationalist podcaster who has built an entire career on dramatizing crime. They are sleep-deprived. From Jack's law enforcement perspective, there is zero physical evidence.
But she saw it.
Yes, but no blood spatter, no cast-off, no body, no sign of forced entry. Memory and eyewitness testimony are notoriously unreliable, especially under stress or fatigue.
I know eyewitness testimony is flawed, but she literally saw a man being choked with a tie.
But without corpus delicti, the body of the crime, a detective cannot open a homicide investigation based on a podcaster looking through binoculars across a lake at night. It's the boy who cried wolf, but the podcaster who cried strangulation.
Ugh, I hate that you're making logical sense, but I still hate how dismissive they were.
So, to cure this supposed writer's block and exhaustion, Allie decides they need a change of scenery. Which brings us to the clamming incident.
A truly wretched activity.
Allie forces Andy to put on waders and go clamming. The absolute disgust I have for clamming cannot be overstated. You are in heavy rubber overalls, squelching around in the thick mud, digging for slimy mollusks in the freezing water. It is a sensory nightmare.
The texture of the mud alone is a violation, and from a safety perspective, wandering into a tidal zone without proper local knowledge is how people get trapped.
Thank you. But of course, they don't just find clams. They literally trip over a dead body washed up on the beach. And guess who it is?
The unattractive man from the window.
Yes, George Slate, the owner of the hotel. And planted perfectly in his pocket is a room key to 309. The exact room Andy swore she saw the murder in. This is where Jack finally gets to do some brilliant analytical police work. He doesn't just look at the body. He looks at the environment. They find George's truck parked nearby with his luggage inside. Jack looks at the driver's seat and makes crucial observation.
The seat.
Yes, the seat is pulled all the way forward toward the dashboard and the steering wheel is tilted completely down.
Meaning George, who was a solid 6 feet tall, absolutely did not drive that truck to the beach.
Exactly. This is kinetic evidence. The vehicle ergonomics prove that someone much shorter drove the truck. The killer moved the body, planted the luggage to stage it like George went for a walk and accidentally drowned, and then abandoned the vehicle. It completely unravels the accidental drowning theory instantly.
Yes. Total vindication for Andy. She isn't crazy. So now they have a real, verifiable murder, and they need suspects, which introduces us to Kim Morrison and Seth Atkins, the adulterous antiquers.
A classic misdirection tactic by the writers.
Right. Remember, Kim was the woman registered to room 308, right next to the murder room.
Yeah.
Kim and Seth are hanging out around the town, and they claim they don't really know each other well. They say they're just both in town for the Founders Flea Festival looking for antiques.
But Allie, the veteran novelist, uses her keen observational skills. She isn't a cop, but she understands human behavior. She notes their proxemics, their spatial relationship. They are standing less than 3 feet apart, which is an intimate zone, and they are subconsciously mirroring each other's gestures. If he crosses his arms, she crosses hers. That implies a deep, established rapport, not two strangers at a flea market.
Which is such a brilliant behavioral detail.
Yeah.
So Allie decides to set a trap. She casually walks up and mentions to them that she is looking for a highly specific, rare antique, a 1939 Founder's Cove roll-top desk. And they immediately light up, agree, and say that's the holy grail they're looking for, too.
The brilliance of this psychological trick is revealed later when Allie tells Andy that the desk does not exist. She completely fabricated it.
She invented an antique out of thin air just to catch them in a lie. It's so messy, and I'm obsessed with it.
It's actually a recognized interrogation technique. It's a variation of the false premise or the holdback technique. In real police work, investigators will sometimes casually introduce a completely fictitious piece of evidence to a suspect. If the suspect eagerly agrees with the lie to bolster their alibi, their credibility is instantly destroyed. Allie weaponized her fiction writing skills for real-world manipulation.
So Jack, Allie, and Andy corner Kim and Seth and confront them with the lie. And they finally break down and confess. But they don't confess to murder.
No, they confess to a deeply elaborate financial and marital conspiracy.
They admit they are silent partners in the hotel who are married to other people. They use the hotel for their annual illicit affair. They literally bought a financial stake in the business just to have a permanent, unquestionable excuse to meet up in the same room every single year without their spouses getting suspicious.
The financial gymnastics alone are staggering.
The emotional disgust I felt at this cheating. The sheer entitlement. The way they tried to justify it, talking about culturally imposed monogamy and how society doesn't understand their bond. If you don't want to be married, get a divorce.
Right.
Do not buy a percentage of a boutique hotel just to facilitate your infidelity. The lengths people will go to avoid an honest conversation with their spouse is mind-blowing.
It's an incredibly elaborate cover, but analytically, it clears them of the murder. They have absolutely no motive to kill George Slate. George was their golden goose. He ran the hotel while they got to hook up in peace. Killing him ruins their perfect setup.
So the killer is still out there, and the killer is clearly getting nervous that Allie and Andy are asking questions. This brings us to the most terrifying claustrophobic part of the episode. The carbon monoxide attack.
This is where the cozy mystery abruptly shifts into a survival horror scenario.
Truly. Allie and Andy are back in their recycled Sullivan's Crossing cabin. They are trying to write, but suddenly they start feeling incredibly sleepy, like unnaturally heavily exhausted. They think it's just writer's block or the fresh country air, but then they realize they are actively being poisoned.
Someone has taken Dave, the campground owner's running Toro push mower, and hooked a plastic hose from the exhaust pipe directly into the cabin's exterior ventilation system. They are pumping the enclosed space full of carbon monoxide.
Which is terrifying because it's completely invisible.
It is odorless, colorless, and highly lethal. Let's talk about the chemistry of why this is so dangerous. Carbon monoxide binds to the hemoglobin in your blood approximately 200 times stronger than oxygen does.
Wow.
It forms carboxyhemoglobin. Your red blood cells basically get hijacked, meaning they can't carry oxygen to your brain or your organs. The symptoms are exactly what we see on screen: a dull headache, weakness, dizziness, confusion, and overwhelming fatigue. Your brain is literally starving, but you just feel like you need a nap.
They finally realize what's happening and try to escape. But the front door is jammed tight. And when Andy tries to force the windows, she realizes they have been literally nailed shut from the outside.
The premeditation required for that is chilling. The killer had to approach the cabin in the dark, physically hammer nails into the wooden window frames, rig the plastic hose to the mower, route it into the vent, and leave the mower running, all without alerting the women inside. It escalates the crime from a crime of passion to cold-blooded, first-degree attempted murder.
It's horrific. And believing they're actually going to die in this wooden tomb, Allie decides this is the moment to confess her deepest secrets. She turns to Andy as they are losing consciousness, gasping for air, and confesses that she had a sex dream about Detective Jack.
It is objectively hilarious timing.
I was yelling at my screen, this is the absolute worst time for a romantic confession. You are dying of carboxyhemoglobin poisoning, your organs are shutting down, and you're like, by the way, I imagine the detective without a shirt on. Read the room, Allie.
It highlights her complete detachment from reality. Even in the face of imminent death, her priority is unburdening her inappropriate subconscious desires.
Thank goodness Jack and Dave, the campground owner, hear the commotion and break the door down just in time. Dave is all apologetic, acting like the sweet, bumbling, flannel-wearing locals, saying, oh gosh, I shouldn't have left the mower. What a terrible accident.
And here is where we have to note a very shady, critical detail that connects the entire town's history. Jack later discovers that Wilma, the hotel clerk's husband, died of carbon monoxide poisoning years ago.
Yes.
Now, I ask you, is that a coincidence? Two separate, highly specific carbon monoxide incidents in one tiny rural town. Statistically, it's highly improbable. It immediately establishes a pattern and links the local residents to foul play. Carbon monoxide is the weapon of choice in Granite Creek.
It's way too connected. But we still have the glaring issue of the missing murder room. How did Andy see a violent strangulation in room 309, only to find absolutely no evidence 10 minutes later? This brings us to the logistical masterpiece of the episode, the room switch.
This is where my brain almost broke trying to calculate the physics.
Andy finally puts the pieces together. She realizes that when she looked through the binoculars, she actually saw room 308, Kim's room. But when they ran over there, Wilma directed them to room 309. The killer didn't scrub a bloody crime scene in 10 minutes. They literally switched the rooms.
Let's break down the mechanics of this because it is staggering.
Please do.
The killer realizes Andy has spotted them from across the lake. So to completely discredit her eyewitness testimony, they decide to physically swap the defining characteristics of the two rooms. They took the dark blue bedspread, the two hideous bedside lamps, and the massive phallic lighthouse painting from room 308 and physically carried them into room 309. Then they took the decor from 309, including a painting of crows, and put it in 308.
In 10 minutes. Have you ever tried to change a duvet cover or a king-size bedspread by yourself? It takes me 20 minutes, a YouTube tutorial, and a lot of sweating just to get the corners right.
The physical exertion, the panic, the adrenaline required to swap out lighting fixtures and heavy bedding without leaving a trace. It is an unbelievable feat of interior design under extreme duress.
How do you quietly unhook a giant painting? What if it was on a French cleat? What if the lamps were zip-tied to the tables to prevent theft, which hotels do all the time?
And beyond the furniture, think about Locard's exchange principle in forensic science, which states that every contact leaves a trace. A killer wrestling a dead body, sweating profusely, hauling mattresses and lamps back and forth between rooms is going to leave a massive trail of trace evidence. Hair, skin cells, clothing fibers, sweat, fingerprints on the lamp bases. The fact that Jack walked in and saw nothing means he wasn't looking hard enough.
It's giving HGTV meets Dexter. But because the police didn't sweep for fibers, they still need physical proof to catch the killer. Allie remembers that the medical examiner mentioned George had severe cervical vertebrae decay.
Which is essentially advanced spondylosis. The cartilage in his neck was degrading.
Yes. Which means he was likely in constant pain and traveled with a highly specific orthopedic neck pillow. Specifically, Allie guesses a 650 fill down pillow. They realize this pillow wasn't in the planted luggage in the truck. It must still be at the hotel, probably stuffed inside a standard pillowcase, and the killer has no idea what it actually is or why it's important.
So they decide to use it as bait. It's a classic behavioral trap. They casually mention loudly to Wilma in the lobby that the police are coming back with a warrant specifically to look for this highly unique pillow to prove the murder occurred in the hotel. They know whoever is guilty will panic, realize they still have the evidence, and try to dispose of it in the woods.
It's a brilliant trap. So Allie and Andy set up a stakeout in the dark woods at night to catch the killer dumping the pillow. And this leads to my favorite, most hypocritical moment of the entire series. They're sitting in the dark, waiting for a murderer, and Andy announces she has to pee. And she plans to use leaves as toilet paper.
The juxtaposition is stunning.
I was yelling. You spent the entire morning complaining about the mud, refusing to touch wet sand, crying about the sensory nightmare of clamming. But you will happily drop your pants in the pitch-black woods and wipe yourself with random forest foliage. The risk of poison ivy, oak, or sumac alone. Make it make sense.
Desperation alters our boundaries. The biomechanics of holding it eventually override your phobias. But her poorly timed bathroom break leaves them completely vulnerable. Suddenly, the killer appears out of the brush, and they pull a gun on them, and the killer is
Dave. This sweet, folksy, lawnmower apologizing campground owner. I was absolutely floored. Dave. And he stands there and reveals his entire villainous motive. It wasn't a crime of passion, it was real estate.
Always follow the money.
He was trying to sell his campground to a massive mega resort developer for millions. But the developer needed both contiguous properties, the campground and Lady Bell Landing, to build the resort. George wouldn't sell his hotel. He was a real estate holdout, blocking Dave's multi-million-dollar payout. So Dave killed him to force the property into probate and force the sale.
It all comes back to greed and eminent domain tactics. Dave is the one who saw Andy spying through the window. Dave is the one who sprinted down the hall and switched the rooms. Dave nailed the cabin windows shut. Dave rigged the Toro lawnmower. He is a one-man, plaid-wearing crime syndicate.
He's pointing the gun, he's about to shoot them in the woods, and then, out of absolutely nowhere, Melissa Grant, the park ranger they briefly met on the beach, literally drives her heavy-duty truck out of the darkness and hits Dave.
It is the ultimate deus ex machina delivered via a Ford F-150. And I have to point out, Melissa is played by Natalie Brown, who we love from Being Human and The Strain. It's a fantastic cameo, but her vehicular intervention is wildly convenient.
It was so chaotic. So Dave is incapacitated, he's arrested, the real estate plot is foiled, and the case is solved. But we cannot end on a happy, peaceful note. No, the writers have to end on a massive, emotional cliffhanger that completely wrecks me.
It fundamentally changes the entire trajectory of the season.
Jack comes to talk to Andy. He admits that he didn't just ignore her desperate plea to find her missing mother. He took the information Allie gave him, that Andy has a French passport, meaning her mother was likely a French citizen and therefore fingerprinted for a national ID card, and he ran those prints through the database.
He ran them through APHS, the Automated Palm and Fingerprint Identification System. It's a brilliant use of international forensic databases.
And he got a hit. 3 years ago, her mother's fingerprints were found at Derek's Donuts in Montpelier, Vermont. The prints were fresh, left right on the glass counter.
And here is where we connect the geographical dots to the bigger picture. Montpelier, Vermont is directly across the river from Chester College,
Which is exactly where Andy went to school. And the prints were left in June, the exact month and year of Andy's college graduation.
The psychological implications are massive.
I am emotionally devastated for her. Her mom didn't just disappear into the ether. Her mom was there. She was in the same town, watching her daughter graduate from the shadows, eating a donut across the street, and she didn't even say hi. She didn't reveal herself. The toxicity of that, the profound pain of knowing your parent was 10 feet away and actively chose to stay hidden. I felt that betrayal in my chest.
I acknowledged the heavy emotional weight, but my brain immediately started overanalyzing the narrative structure. Why is she hiding in plain sight? Is she in the Federal Witness Protection Program? Is she running from a syndicate? Or, let's ask the truly terrifying question.
What?
Is Andy's mother actually the overarching villain of the entire series? Is she pulling the strings behind all these accidental murders following her daughter around?
Oh my God, if her mom is the mastermind, I will need a week to recover.
It makes narrative sense. The mother who erased all trace of her existence is now leaving breadcrumbs.
My brain is melting. We need to process this logically. Let's move into our first segment, the red flag checklist. Excellent. This is where we identify the biggest warning signs from the show that our characters completely foolishly miss.
Exactly. I'll start with the ignored flag. The flag that was waving right in their faces, painted neon yellow. Dave, the campground owner, being a little too nice, and the specific, terrifying fact that the cabin windows were literally nailed shut.
This is a colossal failure of situational awareness on their part.
Who ignores nailed shut windows? You check into a rustic cabin, you try to open a window for some fresh air, and you see actual galvanized steel nails binding the window frame to the wall. That is not quaint rustic charm. That is a hostage situation waiting to happen.
From a safety, fire code, and basic survival perspective, it is a death trap. But psychologically, it demonstrates a phenomenon known as normalcy bias.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, people's brains refuse to process a threat that is too terrifying to comprehend, so they rationalize it. They were so busy arguing about writing a fictional book that they ignored the fact they were sleeping in a literal wooden cage.
Normalcy bias.
Yeah?
It makes so much sense, even though it's infuriating. Okay, my personal flag, the one that would have sent me running for the hills. The fact that death literally follows Allie and Andy everywhere they go.
It is a statistical impossibility.
It is. Nash Gilbert is pushed off a balcony in episode 1. A car blows up. Now a guy is strangled across the lake. If I am on a wellness retreat to find my center with my friend, and we find out the local boutique hotel is an active murder scene, I am not putting on waiters and going clamming.
No.
I am not setting behavioral traps with fake antique desks. I am calling an Uber Black, I am paying the massive rural surge pricing, and I'm going back to civilization. The total lack of self-preservation is astounding.
You would be in the back of a sedan before the crime scene tape was even unrolled.
100%. I value my life more than a podcast narrative.
Okay, what is your flag? The one you would overanalyze for 3 business days. My flag is the temporal logistics of the room switch. The 10-minute timeline. Let's really look at this from a physical capability standpoint. The killer realizes Andy has spotted them. They have to decide to swap the rooms, gather the materials, move a dead body, clean any trace evidence, hair, fibers, skin cells from room 308, and perfectly replicate the decor of 2 distinct hotel rooms.
It's way too much for one person.
It is physically improbable. Even if Dave was the mastermind, how did he carry a heavy framed lighthouse painting and a king-size mattress cover down a hotel hallway without being seen on CCTV or by a single wandering guest? Where are the architectural blueprints of this hotel? Are there service elevators he used? I demand a full timeline reconstruction. It bothers me on a fundamental logistical level.
You would be standing in the hotel lobby with a stopwatch and a clipboard, forcing the staff to run time trials.
I absolutely would. We need empirical data to prove if it's possible.
I love it. Okay, let's pivot to our next segment. If this were a Lifetime movie, we are casting this story as a completely over-the-top, dramatic Sunday afternoon TV movie.
The genre practically demands this treatment.
It does. We have to defend every casting choice. Okay, who is our lead?
It has to be Andy.
Obviously. She's the paranoid, slightly unhinged podcaster that nobody believes. She's staring out a window with binoculars, drinking red wine, wearing an oversized, chunky knit cardigan. She is peak Lifetime heroine material.
The isolation, the history of trauma with her missing mother, the relentless gaslighting from the male authorities. She hits every demographic marker for a woman in peril who ultimately finds her inner strength and solves the case herself.
Yes. Okay, who is our villain?
Dave. Without question.
Dave, the unassuming, folksy local. He's wearing flannel, he's handing out clamming rakes with a smile, he's talking about retiring to Florida, but secretly he's a ruthless, real estate-obsessed murderer who rigs lawnmower exhaust pipes.
The subversion of the friendly rural neighbor is a staple of the genre. The evil always hides behind a warm smile, a firm handshake, and a thermos of bad coffee.
Always the guy in the flannel. Always. Okay, the detective.
Jack Kerrigan.
The brooding, handsome cop, who is skeptical at first. He rolls his eyes at the amateur sleuth. But then, as they dig deeper into the conspiracy, he slowly learns to trust her instincts and falls deeply in love.
The romance is mandatory. He provides the institutional authority and access to databases like APHS, but she provides the intuitive behavioral leaps. Plus, he needs to have at least one scene where his pants are compromised by spilled alcohol to show his vulnerable human side.
Yes, now. Okay, the nosy neighbor.
Wilma the clerk.
Wilma is giving serious Ficky. I know way more than I'm letting on, but I just want to talk about my dead husband's carbon monoxide poisoning while I organize room keys vibes. She's the one who offers cookies, but you aren't sure if they're laced with arsenic.
She exists purely for exposition, providing local lore and delivering perfectly timed misdirection.
Exactly. And finally, the friend who somehow knows everything, making up fake 1939 Founders Cove roll-top desks just to trap adulterous couples is top-tier, messy bestie behavior. She isn't even a cop. She just lies for fun to see what happens and manipulates people flawlessly. We stand a chaotic friend who gets results.
She weaponizes her fiction writing skills for real-world psychological manipulation. It's admirable, frankly.
It really is.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to our third segment, detective or delusional. We are going to review the biggest moments from the show and assign a verdict. Brilliant observation, lucky guess, or complete delusion.
Let's judge them.
First up, Andy spying on the naked neighbor with binoculars.
My initial ruling is delusional.
Completely delusional. The severe lack of boundaries. You are at a retreat to write a book, not to stare at strangers undressing across a lake. It's giving voyeurism. It's giving creepy. It's illegal in most jurisdictions.
It is a massive invasion of privacy. However, I have to admit, it was a brilliant observation in hindsight, simply because it solved a murder. If she hadn't been invading his privacy, a killer would have gone free, Dave would be a millionaire, and George Slate would just be a tragic clamming accident.
The ends justify the means, I guess.
Yeah.
But still, delusional behavior. Okay, next. Allie's fake roll-top desk trap.
Brilliant observation. Absolutely brilliant.
I agree.
It requires a deep, intuitive understanding of human psychology and the Reed technique of interrogation. She recognized that Kim and Seth were hiding something based on their proxemics and mirroring. She threw out highly specific, esoteric bait, the 1939 Founders Cove desk, knowing that if they were lying about antiquing, they would blindly agree to establish their alibi. It was a flawless tactical maneuver to flush them out.
She played them like a fiddle. She deserved an honorary badge just for that. Okay, final one. Dave's lawnmower carbon monoxide plot.
Complete delusion.
Absolute unfiltered delusion. What was he thinking?
Let's look at the crime scene critically from an investigator's perspective. He thinks the police are going to find two dead women in a cabin with windows visibly freshly nailed shut from the outside and a Toro lawnmower hooked up to a plastic hose routed directly into the ventilation grate. And the cops will just shrug and say, ah, yes, a tragic camping accident. They must have been very cold.
Right. Just some girls trying to heat up the room with a push mower. It is insane. He thought he was giving Breaking Bad levels of chemistry and staging, but he was giving cartoon villain. Jack took one look at it and was like, yeah, this is highly premeditated attempted murder.
The arrogance of the killer blinded him to the glaringly obvious physical evidence he left behind. Delusional.
Totally. Okay, last segment before we wrap up. Survival instinct rankings. We have watched so many true crime documentaries. We have analyzed the statistics. We know how this works. We're going to share the top 5 things we would absolutely do if we ever found ourselves trapped in a suspicious retreat, an isolated resort, or an unsettling getaway.
I am ready.
I'll go first. My list is pure self-preservation. Number 1. Check all window and door locks immediately upon arrival. If they are nailed shut, if the deadbolt is loose, I am breaking the glass and leaving immediately.
Highly prudent.
Number 2. Refuse to do any forced outdoor activities, especially clamming in the mud. The woods and the water are where the killers hide the evidence. I am staying in the lobby where there are witnesses, bright lights, and Wi-Fi.
Nature's a liability. Agreed.
Number 3. Never ever trust the sweet local owner. If they are wearing flannel, offering you homemade pie, and apologizing too much, they are hiding bodies under the floorboards. It's a fundamental true crime rule.
The excessive hospitality is often a mask for psychopathy.
Exactly. Number 4. Don't drink alcohol if someone is acting sketchy. You need your wits about you. Andy was drinking red wine while doing a night stakeout in the woods. Keep your blood alcohol level at 0 when actively investigating a homicide.
Sobriety is a massive tactical advantage.
And number 5. Always bring a portable charger and a physical weapon. I don't care if it's pepper spray, a heavy flashlight, or a really sharp knitting needle. Be prepared to defend yourself. Okay, what is your list?
My list is based on analytical countermeasures. Number 1. Take panoramic photos of the room decor immediately upon arrival.
Wait, that is genius.
Thank you. If anyone attempts a 10-minute switcheroo with the phallic lighthouse paintings and the bedding, I will have time-stamped digital evidence of the original layout. I will not be gaslit by moving furniture.
Incredible.
Number 2. Check the structural integrity of the cabin. Look for hidden vents, two-way mirrors, or loose floorboards. I am sweeping for listening devices and carbon monoxide hoses before I even unpack my toothbrush.
You are treating a weekend getaway like a CIA safe house.
It's necessary in this economy.
Yeah.
Number 3, interrogate any silent partners about their marriage status. If someone claims they're just business investors, I am demanding to see their tax returns and marriage certificates. No adulterous alibis on my watch.
You destroy Kim and Seth's entire lives.
I would ruin their vacation with paperwork. Number 4, secure the perimeter before going to sleep. I am putting a heavy chair under the door handle, and I am scattering empty soda cans by the window so I can hear a tactical approach.
The Home Alone defense.
It's highly effective auditory alerting. And finally, number 5, never, under any circumstances, leave the stakeout vehicle to pee in the woods.
Breach.
Hold it. Dehydrate yourself beforehand. Bring a bottle if you must. But do not wander into the dark flora with a handful of leaves when an active real estate murderer is on the loose. It is a tactical error that almost cost Andy her life.
It is the ultimate bad decision. You guys, this show is a wild ride. The mom twist to the donut shop, the fake desk trap, the Lifetime movie vibes. I am exhausted, but I need the next one immediately.
The narrative threads are pulling tightly together. It's going to be a fascinating conclusion to analyze.
It really is. Okay, Snark Squad, it is your turn. We need to hear from you in the comments. Which part of the show surprised you the most? Was it the mom at the graduation, or the fact that Dave, the sweet campground guy, was a real estate murderer?
I want to know if anyone else caught the Sullivan's Crossing set reuse. Validate my observation, please.
Also, we need to know, what is your ultimate comfort food? Is it a perfect messy steak and cheese, or something else? And finally, have you ever gone down a true crime TikTok rabbit hole about female criminals and completely lost track of time? Tell us your most niche obsession.
Before we go, I want to leave everyone with a thought to mull over. We spent this entire conversation dissecting how a peaceful retreat turned into a nightmare. But consider how easily we are manipulated by our physical environments. The spaces we feel safest in a cozy cabin, a locked hotel room, or even the proximity of our own family rely entirely on the context we assign to them. When that context shifts, when a window is nailed shut or a mother hides in plain sight, the sanctuary instantly becomes the trap. Pay attention to the architecture of your life, both physical and emotional.
That is so eerie and so true. Thank you so much for listening and unpacking all of this with us. Remind yourselves to like, comment, subscribe, and share this conversation with your favorite true crime bestie. We love you.
Until next time.
Stay curious, stay cautious, and we'll see you on the Snark side.